Luis is contacting to provide some more information about establishing housing cooperatives and sort of the nuts and bolts, maybe bringing down the dirty details of co-ops. So, welcome, Luis.
Thanks. Yes, so I'm coming down from Davis and up a little bit closer here. And is a microphone necessary? Is this loud enough, or should I speak into a microphone?
I think you're fine.
You're okay now. Yeah.
We can fill this thing so we're not.
There you go.
So I'm coming from the California Center for Cooperative Development, but I'm also wearing another hat, which is that I'm a member of a limited equity housing cooperative in Davis called Los Vinos. And in my job at the Center for Cooperative Development, we support all kinds of cooperatives, and we are ourselves a 501c3 nonprofit. We work with all kinds of cooperatives. We focus our work on providing training and technical assistance, especially for the leaders of cooperatives, those people who are on the board, but also to the general membership. So my particular domain is within kind of half between food and agriculture, and now half with housing. And what I thought would be helpful to prompt questions, discussion, and to give you something almost tactile, is to share my experience as a member of a housing cooperative for the past 10 years, and also serving on the board and committees that we have. And I'm also going to talk about a manufactured home park that's resident owned that I've been working with closely for the past 3 years in Soledad. And it is a manufactured home park that was established in about 1989, 90, took about 2 years to get established. So that's the way that I've learned a lot about the specifics of manufactured home parks. But I want to try to make this as tactile as possible without having to have you drive 250 miles to go see these co-ops. So this isn't all clear, but this is in northwest Davis. Let me come up here and point out some things. So this is a Google map shot of an area that was developed in the 80s. It was a big tract of farmland, and now there's a shopping center, a bunch of apartments, condos, private homes, and this is our housing co-op. And it was established essentially by negotiation of Davis City Council and the developer of this whole big piece of land that said, you need to put in a certain percentage of affordable housing, and these are your options. It can be to a property that gets handed over to a non-profit housing manager. In that case, it was YOLO Mutual Housing Association. And it could be a cooperative. And that developer just looked at the menu of options and said, okay, I'll make this portion of this development a housing cooperative. So we were, I guess, blessed in that in 1985 there was no big fight. It was just kind of built, and then people moved in for the first year or two as renters, and then as soon as 80% of those units were filled, then the cooperative corporation was created, and all of the assets transferred, and there was got a mortgage on it to pay off the developer. And we've been there since 1985. And it is really striking. I mean, you being in the San Francisco Bay feel this even more than we do in Davis, but Davis is really unaffordable. To the extent that these apartments here, 3-bedroom apartments, 1 bath, these go for about $2,300. We have condos, so that's right across the street from us, and that's a lot of students. 3 bedrooms, probably 6, 7 people in there. Condos, 1 story, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Now they go for about $400,000, which I don't know, around here that'd be cheap. But in Davis, and for me, that's not affordable to try to come up with the $80,000 for a down payment, and then probably $22,000 something in mortgage payments every month. It's not affordable. So we are a cooperative that operate at cost. So we know what our operating costs are essentially every year to a good degree of guess. And it works out that for my 3-bedroom, 2-bath units, I pay $12.32 this year. And that's what my proportion is of the operating costs that keep Los Pinos looking the way it does. And what does it look like? It's this kind of condo townhouse. You see this shows brighter or not so bright. So it's this kind of place, right? It's 9 buildings. We're all pretty squished together. Nothing terribly fancy. One of our proudest developments was, as a membership, was to finally, after 20 years, turn our kind of rental market gray color apartments essentially to get them painted bright colors. And that's a huge effort, and it really makes us feel proud. And we have our clubhouse and a nice little pool, which is very well used. It's part of my family. So that's my experience with that is that this is the only way that I can live in Vegas, and it's because people back in the '80s had the foresight to establish this cooperative. All of our neighbors next door, it's a company that has that property to generate wealth for themselves. So they simply check and see what people are able to pay and take that to the max. So that's why somebody who lives across the street from me in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath apartment is paying twice as much as I am. And it's not like they've got a whole lot more amenities than I do. I'm going to walk you through a few things, and I want to also share with you next about what the nature is of resident-owned manufactured housing cooperative. So I can say, when I use the word cooperative, I can say resident-owned or limited equity housing cooperative. And I'll explain these things as we go through. So what is it? It is a development that's jointly owned by all of the residents. And that means it's the property and the shared buildings. Unlike my housing cooperative, you guys, I think, own your own homes, right?
Right.
In my place, I don't own, it's not like a condo. I simply have the right to occupy my particular, apartments. And I own actually nothing by myself. So this is a little bit different in that the cooperative is the property, the roads, the buildings, this place, and not the individual homes. So the ownership that you're, cooperative means that you have shared ownership. And it's done by creating the corporation in which all of the residents who live here are the shareholders. So you would own a share, and that provides you that right to occupy your specific space. And the other part of it is that it is democratically governed. It doesn't matter whether or not you have a double wide or single wide or whatever the value of your home is. Every member has one vote. That also, being a member means also that you are the only people eligible to serve on the board of directors, which are the people that would either be the supervisor of your manager or manage the contracts with a management company. And yes, you members would be the only people eligible to serve on that board. So I will share with you a little bit more about Cooperativa Santa Elena, formed in 1989-90 in Soledad, California. So that's Highway 101. There are 100 units there. They also have a simple clubhouse, pool, and a pretty decent-sized And it is also, quite simple in that, it's all modest housing, very clean and well kept. That's their clubhouse, and laundry room, their nice pool, a little playground. And as a cooperative, they're also responsible for the maintenance of their property, and they're using their reserve funds that they contribute every single month, and they are repaving. They're actually taking out all of the asphalt and putting it in concrete. I think that's what it is. Just a higher quality kind of street that doesn't require as much upkeep. So this is a group that, unlike how my own co-op, these guys had to fight tooth and nail for theirs. This was essentially all, throughout the 70s and 80s, a bunch of manufactured homes and RVs in this area on dirt roads, and they went on a rent strike for their landlord, got some legal help, and managed to get that owner into a position in which he wanted to sell because there were more problems in getting rent from the people than it was worth. So it's been since 1990 that they have been a resident-owned manufactured home park. And this is the primary manufactured home park that I work with in providing the kind of board training around all sorts of things. Some of it has to do with member engagement. There's 100 people there. Some of it has to do with finance, education, and long-term planning issues. So how does this limited equity housing co-op work? So the first thing is, the way you become owners is by purchasing it from the person who previously owned it. And you do that with by getting a loan. You get a mortgage. And so there is one mortgage that covers all of the property, all of the common area. And each one of you then is contributing towards the payment of that mortgage on a monthly basis. So at that point, we stop saying that you pay rent here on a monthly basis. What you do is you pay an assessment or a carrying charge. And it's the same amount of money, maybe the same amount of money, but it's the same transaction with your mobile home park, but here we're changing that feeling of it to reflect that you are paying just for the operating costs, and rent is not something that belongs to somebody outside of the corporation. So the nice thing about being a partial property owner is that, and this is what happens with me every year from my own housing cooperative, that as somebody who has, I have 1/60th, I contribute towards 1/60th of the mortgage payments. So I get that mortgage interest deduction that I can claim on my own personal income taxes. So that's a nice benefit that's sometimes overlooked. Yes?
So every year do you get what kind of tax form do you get?
The same one, let's see.
Is it a 1099?
It is a 1099, yes, 1099 interest, I think, or 1099. So
And then you,
I'm forgetting what the form is, but I get the IRS form. So our office manager gets we also get to deduct our property taxes as well. So that is, it is an actual financial benefit of being essentially co-owner of a property. So the same way that it would be as if you were owners of your own home and land, right? So you just become a fractional part of that. So, and that benefit will be great when you have a new mortgage and it'll have its interest. And it'll reduce over time. So what you pay to become a member of the co-op is your share of the cost. And for cooperatives, what we train people on is that you don't come up with an arbitrary number just to create a barrier of entry or set your share price is so that you raise enough money to be able to start the co-op. So for your case, it would be a number that would be based on, well, how much of a down payment do you have to put down to get that mortgage? And I don't know for this level, this kind of money, I haven't been part of that process, but the rational way of figuring out what your share price is going to be based on what your financial needs are to get started. Right? So when we say limited equity, then we say that share has a value, and for limited equity housing costs, there's some formula that you come up with to assign an increase in value over time that has nothing to do with what's going on in the real estate market. So, you know, my neighbor's $400,000 condo 20 years ago was probably $200,000. And, you know, it went up to maybe even $500,000, and then 2009 happens, and it all kind of disappeared for a while. And now it's all the way back to 400,000. So it goes up and down and up and down. And that's what we call it, you know, that's the market value. So in our cooperative, what we set out in our bylaws is that we established that share price in 1985, and wrote in our bylaws that the share price will increase by via the prime interest rate that's published in the Wall Street Journal on January 1st of every year. And so that's something that's usually a number that's between 1 and 5%. Lately it's been about 3% over the past few years. So 1985, I think the shares might have been about $5,000, and now we're working on mine being about $30,000. So it's appreciated. Yeah. So in the past 10 years that I've been there, it's gone from 29 to, what did I say? 35? It's appreciated a few $1,000s. But the nice thing about that is that it's divorced from the market. Because I know that the people in Salinas and Soledad, people saw property values double and then go down by 80% and now come back up. And so people that had to sell between 2009 and 2015 lost their shirts, lost equity. And our numbers at Davis, in that same period of time, we just had a steady little increase in the share value. Right? So there are such things as zero equity cooperatives that are truly affordable housing where the share price just stays the same. And we generally only see that with the subsidized affordable housing. So I work with one other farm worker housing cooperative in which, to be a member, you must show evidence that you were involved in agricultural labor. So you can imagine the incomes of those families. So they set their share price like this. It never changes. And I wouldn't necessarily expect that's the formula that would be applied here. You might want to be looking at something like what the Salinas has done. And that's the kind of thing that you want to talk to an accountant and attorney about. So, and the other important part is about limited equity housing cooperatives is it does require owner occupancy. And that is something that's written into our state statutes to be treated as a housing cooperative, and there must be owner occupancy. So sometimes there can be a light shade of gray thrown in there, such that definitely the shareholder needs to live there, but you can rent out a room, but you can't simply decide to take a sabbatical and leave a year or leave, or whatever. Get a second home, move somewhere else, and keep your share and stick somebody else in it who's going to pay you market rate while you pay the co-op, the more affordable rates, right? So this is one of the things, and I'm not sure if that's what proportion of owner or whatever resident occupancy there is here, like the person who's on the lease here with Link. You guys have, each of you have a lease with Link, is that the way it works? No?
Some do.
What? What do you mean? Who would you have? I mean, there's one owner of this place, right? Two owners. Oh, okay. All right, yeah, sorry. Sorry, I'm little bit new to the
They took
details.
to a period where they said there would be no more leases, you're on year to year.
Once a
And
month,
they
right?
went back and said, okay, everybody, all the new people are getting a lease. So it's
Mhm.
just,
But it is, I mean, it's something that's, it's essentially a contractual agreement for you to pay somebody
yeah.
Yes.
to live there. And I don't know if part of that lease, if they allow you to rent out or sublease, if you're allowed to, whatever. So subleasing is not a possibility in the limited equity housing co-op, whether it's manufactured housing or my kind of
Sorry, one quick question.
housing co-op. Yes, sir.
That's statewide or just
Yes.
a particular situation?
Which part?
The part about the not having, you have to be owner occupied. That's
statewide, yeah, it's statute level, yes. Right. So, yeah, and for us, I mean, not to complicate the matter too far, before coming to Davis, I lived in Salinas, and with my housemates and my parents, I bought a condo, straight up condo, so I have a mortgage in Salinas. And I left for school in Davis, and so I said, I really shouldn't sell this place because prices are really going up and whatever, and so are the prices in Davis, so all I'm going to be doing is trading one for another and not making any money. So I'm going to rent it out for 2 or 3 years while I'm in school and then come back. Well, I met my wife and I left Davis, so I stayed there. So my condo has turned into a rental, and because of the whole real estate crisis, the recession of 2009 through 15, of my condos, my condo neighbors, I'd say about 75% are rentals and only 25% are owner occupied. Because some of those people bought those bankrupt homes, condos for $75,000 and are now renting it for $1,800 a month. When they have a mortgage of, all of their costs are less than $1,000, they're making almost $1,000 in pure profit every month. And those are, and so that is, I'm trying to compare and contrast here what these different situations are like. But in general, it is, I think, a higher general quality of life to live with fellow resident owners as opposed to renters that come and go and, well, you don't know. So the thing about owner occupancy then means also that when you apply to become a member of a co-op, part of the process will involve you putting in your application, doing your credit check, all that kind of stuff. But there's, for every co-op that I know, there's been an interview committee that is comprised of members. And so you'll go through a little orientation about what it means to be a part of a co-op. And yes, you get the opportunity to actually meet and vet those people. There are fair housing laws, so you can't just say you are going to reject somebody because they're not good looking enough or they have a disability. But sometimes things come up in those interviews where you realize that this person is going to discriminate against the neighbors that already live there. So we've had that happen in Mosquitoes a few times where in an interview we realized that this person is not going to treat some of our neighbors the way that they should be treated. So in a few instances, membership was denied when we realized that we're going to be stepping into a problem by accepting a certain kind of certain attitude from a member. So here we go. Oh, and I wrote that little thing. Temporary rental is possible. So we do have in most co-ops there is maybe a 1-year possibility of leasing out, but you must get approval from the board of directors, and there must be a hard end date. So that if you aren't back on that end date, then the process of terminating your membership begins. So, transaction. So I've reviewed some of these things already. So when somebody wants to leave the cooperative, you tell the cooperative that you are looking to sell your share. And usually it's the cooperative that will have a waiting list and will give you those people to contact. So there's no real estate agents involved in that share transaction. Let's see, and yeah, we're selling the share in the manufacturing home, yes. So, and those are all the people that have already been accepted into the co-op. They haven't become a member, but they've been vetted and they're ready to become members. So that aspect of you having to find a real estate agent is now null and void. It's nice for us. Transaction is much easier. It also means that you can't make a side deal to sell it for a lot more than what the posted price is of your share. What the price is for your home, that is your home. So that's what's different for what this manufactured home product terms is.
Do you find that the individual value of the mobile home goes up because it's located in a co-op, in a resident home?
You know, I don't have that information.
Is there a waiting list at Soledad for people to buy into mobile homes there?
Yes, there is, yes. So we actually get requests from housing cooperatives for us not to list them on our website because the waiting list is already so long that they can't take anymore unless our listing lists. And so, yeah, I'm sorry I can't answer that question because I haven't really studied it, but when I talk to people at the free co-ops that I've been working with, there is plenty enough of a waiting list that people don't have to search for anybody. So, go next to, so the equity cap that I talked about is just on the share value, not on your home. But, let's see, yeah, so the restriction is about memo review and credit check about the application. So the people that you offer your space to is going to be already a vetted list. So, so if it ever happens that a cooperative decides to dissolve or even sell out, we've seen unfortunately in other states cooperatives that after they're done paying off the mortgage, the people who live there say, let's turn this to market rate and take out $100,000 each. But the way that it works for in California and when you're incorporated is it's written into your articles of incorporation will say that if this thing ever shuts down or gets sold, anything, any net profits from the deal needs to be donated to another 501c3. So that is part of the, I guess, it's not an incentive. It's about keeping affordable housing affordable. So you have to understand that cooperatives have been formed to provide a service to its members, but also to general society. So this is one of those things that takes out the profit motive of taking housing out of affordability. So I'm proud of that, but some people, like I said, some people they can't see past the end of their nose. Don't like that. They think that, oh, I have $100,000 and that means I can put that money down to buy a $300,000 home. Where can you find that? Move to Iowa. But yeah, so here we go. This is a model. If you're talking to people, this is a little image that I like to use about what the different housing types are. That in a condo, everybody owns their individual piece of the pie. You have your own independent mortgage. You might be squished together, but you are all pretty much independent. You probably have a small HOA. And when you're in a housing co-op, you all share the whole pie. And in a rental, well, you don't own any of the pie. The pie is above your head. And that means that decisions are entirely above your head. So, I'm going to bring up this list of what some of the benefits are of being a cooperative. And the very brief illustration we gave about Los Pinos is that we set our assessments to cover our costs, and that's all. And by costs, I mean what we know that our management company needs for their people to be paid, any planned repairs, and sometimes we're also putting money into our reserves because every 5 to 10 years we have a huge project that costs $150,000. And we don't want to just all of a sudden double our assessments to cover the costs in that year. So by operation of cost, we mean what we can reasonably estimate for the next year what it's going to cost, plus our reserves. So that's what it means, operating at cost. And that's why, yes, our housing payments compared to our market rate condos and renters is about half. Yeah, so let me show you. So, as members, you do have a direct voice in policies and operations. So those are the rules of the cooperative. So that happens generally from action of the board that sets the policy down and members can vote on it. When board, in my own co-op, the board has sometimes put in rules that the members really didn't like at all, and they overturned those rules. So that's part of the democratic process, but it is an example of how the democratic process works in a housing cooperative. It's something that's completely out of the realm of any other kinds of home ownership structure. So, as member owners, you have a strong a strong interest in investing in your property because this is your quality of life. And I have not seen very many co-ops that are so hell-bent on keeping their assessments low that they're willing to have paint peeling off of the siding and dead grass for their lawns. So because you live there and there's not somebody who's looking to extract as much profit as possible, you have the ability to make this your living environment of your dreams. So yes, you get a little bit of potential for growth in home equity, limited, and there's no risk of displacement, which is a real possibility when it's anybody, whether it's a nonprofit or a private corporation owning it. So, yeah. The vulnerability of this staying not resident-owned is that your rent can increase according to the market or to whatever the needs are of the entity that owns it. That you don't have a direct voice in the policies and rules, and that you have, if this turns completely private, then yeah, your home value fluctuates with the markets. Here through. Yeah. So, I'm hammering things in here, but when somebody else owns this, their interests are first and foremost, and you are the vehicle for providing them revenue, and that is, not a good place to be. And it doesn't matter whether it's a nonprofit or private corporation. Look at that flag, because I'm going to get through a few more things here. So, anything else that you want to know a little bit more about here? Okay. So let me tell you all these things, like what the vulnerability is. In Soledad, there are 3 manufactured home parks. One of them is a co-op, the other ones are privately owned. These are the people of the Nielsen Trailer Park last year, 2018. Can't see the signs, they're in City Hall. There are signs here that say, "We don't want to lose our homes. Demolish poverty, not our home." There's some language in Spanish. This is also Soledad, it's an area that all agricultural-based economy. So I'm going to read you something from the newspaper that this picture came from. And that is, in October of 2018, the new owner sent out a notice to residents indicating that he wanted to build a new hotel and that everyone will have to leave. 30 families will be evicted after the landowner announced his intent months ago to build a hotel on the property. Many of the over 100 people who are living at the park are in agriculture or retired. So they hoped that by all of them marching to Soledad City Council, that somehow the City Council will be able to do something. They can't. It's private property. It's not theirs. And this owner has that property to generate wealth for himself. He's seeing that the location of this right off of 101, perfect for a hotel. And there's not a hotel for another, what we have to go to Salinas, it's another 30 miles north. So these people are, this has already happened. So it's now 2019 and they are in the middle of getting those houses out and turning them into a lot. So that's, I mean, this, trying to make this as tactile as possible and what could happen with any manufactured home park that is not resident owned. Okay. Briefly go over these things. So, after this, I'm happy to take questions as we go along. Anything that I've thrown out there that you want a little bit more, or any other aspect that you want me to hone in on, based on my personal experience or those people I've worked with. I'm happy to do this. Yes.
You had mentioned, we had spoken on the phone about a non-profit entity that had a for-profit partner, and it was financed with tax credit financing.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah. So I'm sorry, so there's another co-op that lost their co-op because it was created by a nonprofit housing developer, I think maybe even in the late 70s, early 80s. And the way that they got the finance was through a low-income housing tax credit deal in which somebody who has way too much money essentially donates money to build this thing in return for getting tax credits. And it's a huge, complicated thing that I barely understand. But it's one in which then it might say that this is called Vista de la Terraza Housing Cooperative in Salinas. And so it's them, it's their corporation, but it turns out that who really owns it is this limited liability company, which is a partnership between the co-op and this a group of fabulously wealthy people. And the co-op really owns 1%, or less than 1%, and 99% is what we call the tax credit partner. At the end of the term, so that other entity only wants to be a part of that partnership for as long as they can get tax credit units. And I think that's 16 years or some weird number like that. It's 16 years. And so when that term expired, well, the true owner of that property is this fabulous little person. They said, okay, we're ready to sell it to you. And the co-op was in no position to be able to buy it. And because of that, then some other nonprofit housing developer is now the owner. And there's all sorts of, I'm really not happy with how that turned out, especially because that housing developer is another nonprofit housing developer that was also the manager that should have been helping the co-op get ready for this day. And instead, it just kind of got delivered to them for a very for a sweet deal. So does that answer the kind of, it's another example of what happens when you're not truly resident owned. And I don't expect that a tax credit deal is part of what is being envisioned for this project, or is it?
I guess the point is, is it fair to say that if it's 100% resident owned,
Yes.
and there's no other outside
Right.
nonprofit partner
Yeah.
or tax credit investor
Yeah.
involved in some convoluted structure, that the most security
Yeah.
for the residents of the mobile home park is achieved because all of the residents own the park?
Yes, that's the end part of it. Maybe more details than we need to know. But that is what the outcome of that illustrates. So that's, yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Within your cooperative and other cooperatives, is it, when when they're making a decision about something, is it all like majority, simply 51%, or how does that work? Is it 2/3?
Yes, here we go. So it speaks to this part about co-op authority and accountability. The members elect the board of directors, and the board of directors has to be members. And it's within the board of directors that most of the work happens. The board of directors then will oversee and direct either a manager who's a direct hire of the cooperative, or you might have a management contract with, a property management company, and that's all they do. This is between the members and the board of directors. There's got to be accountability and connection, and that usually happens. When it happens well, it's because you have a system of committees that the members are part of that provide advice and that provides feedback from the general community to the board of directors. But the authority to do things, let's say, the biggest things have to do around issues in the budget. So if you say that you want to put solar panels on this building, and it's going to cost a certain amount of money, it is the people on the board of directors who work with the management company to put that in the budget. And when that budget is approved by the members, then it's going to happen. So there's that linkage in this accountability. So there are, the board is essentially the group that's going to be meeting every month to review the finances and to conduct longer-term planning. And within the board, and you might have 5, 7, 9, 11 people on that board, you'll also make decisions about, what other kind of things could there be? Lots of things about any other contractor, a landscaper, plumber, roofer. You're going to be the ones who review those bids. And so you'll instruct your management company, we want 3 bids for re-roofing the clubhouse. And you'll get those bids. And within the board, in an open session, you review the merits of each of them. And we might be the kind of board that picks always the lowest one. Our co-op is the kind that never picks the lowest one, but we always look for like the second and third lowest one, and never the highest. So, and that's all dependent on who is on the board of directors. So there is, and this is the kind of the triangle between membership board of directors and your site management or management company. And these are the ways that members are connected to the board of directors and how the board oversees management.
So I think you just said that the budget is approved by the members?
Yes.
So does the property management company prepare the budget, give it to the board of directors, and then it's mailed out to each one of the members? Is that how it works?
It is, yeah. Yes, that is the case, yes.
And,
Good. So it's also the board of directors who's going to determine if there's going to be an assessment increase, and if there is, to what degree. That's part of the budget. We set up the budget and determine how much money you're going to take in and how you're going to do that.
So then do the members vote at the annual meeting to approve the budget?
Yeah. So here's, I might have a memory lapse here. Let me start with one thing that I know that members vote on. It's when any single item within your budget is more than 5% of the whole budget. The members must approve that. So our members have to vote, when we do the combination siding replacement and paint. That usually is more than 5% of our annual budget. So the members must vote on that. Now, I do know that members do not vote on whether there's going to be an assessment increase. So I think I just made a mistake saying that all members vote on the budget. They vote on special conditions in the budget. So I have to correct that. It's been a few years since I've been on the board. That part I know I just got wrong, but I'm correct about members needing to vote on what you call it, an extraordinary expense. Right?
And of that expense, that, greater than 5% expense,
Yep.
is that just a simple majority, like 51%?
It is, yes. Okay. That is a simple majority. There's only a few things that require a supermajority. I can't remember what those are, but they're sensitive issues. Yes. Yes.
What percent is that, just for regular majority?
51, you got to have 50% plus 1. So for us, it's, we have 60 members, so it's 31 members need to vote.
And in the major majority, what percent would that be?
Yeah, 75%.
Oh,
So that is, we're getting into like the intermediary training on board governance here. So I mean, the thing that I like to emphasize is that these co-ops, there's thousands in the U.S. and for the vast majority, the people on the board of directors who are making these decisions don't have degrees in real estate or investment or finance, or just regular people. I mean, this is the board of Cooperative Santa Elena. All of them work in agriculture. Only 2 of them speak enough English for you and I to have a conversation in English with them. They have an excellent manager, and they have a strong membership that's really engaged. So even at their regular board of directors meeting, you'll find another 10, 12 common members just listening in and keeping an eye on the board of directors, which is also a requirement. All of your board of directors meetings need to be announced. They need to be announced to...
And open to the public?
And not the public, to the members.
To the members?
Yes,
Yeah.
to the members, yes. So, yes, this is the thing, 100 units, they've got, what is their operating budget? It's well over $700,000 a year. Yours would be much more than that. But they also, they manage that big project of repaving all of their roads, and they do long-term financing. And this is a board that also, the linkage between members and boards has also resulted in the cooperative setting up a funeral fund and a scholarship fund as kind of extra little assessments. And some of them that they can, the scholarship fund, everybody contributes to. The funeral fund is ones that members can subscribe as a second assessment to. So this is one of those things that you can understand. I saw a funeral fund. It's really common in Latin America that communities have funeral funds. And that's what this co-op has done. So that is also something that you would only come out of a good relationship between the members and the board of directors. So that's what can happen. So here's a little bit more. Let me go through about what members do. Elect directors, approve changes to bylaws, approve large projects, serve on committees. There we go. Yes. So this is what members can vote on. These are the core things that they can vote on. So you're not going to members every time that you want to change the hours on the access to the clubhouse. The members are not going to vote on that. The board is going to vote on that and tell the management company to change the sign depending on the vote within the board of directors. So these are big ticket items that the members will vote on. And serve on committees. Committees don't have power. They provide advice and they're helpers to the board. And it is really important that be a healthy relationship. So conduct research, assess member opinions, and make recommendations to the board. That's what committees do. So right now, giving you an example, Dos Pinos has about 7 committees. The biggest one is landscape, because we as members have chosen to give ourselves a lot of space for us to individually work on. So I can do anything right outside my porch and right behind my unit. So I've got fruit trees on both sides and some things for my kids to play on. And that's something that you certainly won't find in apartments and in a lot of other kinds of housing. We've also got now a solar committee that's examining what has to happen for us to be able to install solar panels on our units. Yeah, and we also have, like I said, there's an interview committee that's always had one. Finance committee that is given a little budget to invite CPAs and others to provide this kind of trainings to the board and to the members. So that's the kind of work that those people do. What do boards do? Manage a contract with a management company, establish policies, not written before that members can overturn a policy. They can't set a policy, but if there's something that members really feel strongly against, they can force a member to vote on reversing the policy. And budgets, site improvements, and the board themselves will, in executive session, review the membership applications and give the final okay to put them on the wait list. Yeah, they will overall oversee the work of the management company. So at your board meeting, a representative from the management company should be there. Okay, so, and management company, yeah, every month provides a report that's on finance, and we just call it the regular management report about community issues, about what the status is of different repairs, yeah, maybe those kinds of things. And then, about responsibilities, I'll put these up here. So, responsibility to act civilly is the main thing, and to recognize that that for every issue that you bring to the membership, that you're going to have some percentage for and against something, and especially the board of directors is to first look out for the long-term interest for the cooperative entity and make that final call. In my co-op, we are lucky when we get 45% in favor of something. Because what usually happens is we have 40% for something, 40% against something, and 20% that just you never hear from. And we're lucky if we can get to 50% of in favor of any proposed change. And that's why it took us 15 years to change our the paint, the color of our sidings. You know, it's yellow, blue, and green. It's pretty. It took 15 years and many different attempts to do that, to propose the change. And it took somebody willing to put in a good 6-month process of that member engagement and make it in a stepwise vote to actually make an irreversible change to change the colors, and then not let the board of directors decide those colors, but to hire a color consultant, which I had no idea existed. It was money so worth spent, and everybody is thrilled that we don't have this Soviet gray building that was the same color that was put in, 1985 by the person, the developer, who didn't care at all. So yeah, conflicts are human condition, and being able to listen and to be able to articulate arguments in a civil way is an important skill that you will learn.
Question.
Yes.
You mentioned that you sometimes bring in like CPAs for
Yeah.
training and stuff like that.
Right.
Do you also bring in people for conflict resolution or meeting training and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, when I was first there, we brought in a few folks that we knew in that kind of Davis, Sacramento area.
Okay.
Let's see. But as I don't know, like a separate contract to have always on hand somebody who's going to do conflict resolution. No, it's been off and on.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking for training, not necessarily someone who's going to be there at every meeting.
Right, in our budget, so that goes under, there's a social committee, there's also budget and budget education. So all those committees have a budget that they can work with. And it's part of the budgeting. August comes around, we ask all the committees, what do you want to do next year? What's your budget? And almost always we're able to get them what they need. I mean, it's never like more than $1,000 per committee to do that kind of education and consulting. Landscaping is the biggest one. It's the most difficult thing for ourselves to wrap ourselves around, so we get somebody who's specialized in trees and irrigation and have them provide their professional advice rather than having us make it up. Okay, so yeah, and monitoring cooperative finances, that is, I'd say, at least 40% of the work of the board, and having people on the finance committee active is a great help. The reserve study is a difficult thing to learn about, but once you understand it, then it becomes a very helpful tool in your long-term financial planning. That's part of what our center does, is to help translate this thick document that is the reserve study that helps you plan out 30 years for major repairs and figure out how much you need to put in 2019 for 2020 for repairs that you're expecting to do in 2035 or 2040. And there's engineers that are good at putting those numbers together, but it still takes some work to understand. So, yes, and other trainings. A good housing co-op will also put in the budget to send members and board members to conferences like the National Association of Housing Cooperatives and our own California Co-ops Conference. We have a full track on housing. So, those things. And that's one, I'm home this one that I don't know about. Something that Kim knows about. So, yeah, so if you're going to have a thriving cooperative that's not really mired in conflict, education for members and for your board is always important. So, that is what I wanted to share with you today, is about how co-ops operate and what kind of opportunities you have. Really show you, for me, Dos Pinos is the reason why my household is a single income household living in a place where there's no other housing option for me. Not even rental. If I was to turn into a renter and move to Woodland or Zamora or some other place and not have the school district that is the school district. So yeah, I'm not impartial to cooperatives because it's really made a huge difference in my life, and I hope that you being able to take the opportunity to take on resident ownership here could also lay that foundation for long-term affordability. So anything else that I can share with you? Yes?
Could you talk a little bit more about the reserve study and the purpose of the reserve is to prevent any catastrophic special assessment against the individual members, but it's planning.
Yeah. So I guess years ago before, 15 years ago, there wasn't a culture in our co-op for education. We got these reserve studies, nobody knew how to do anything with it, and really didn't understand anything what was going on with it. And then we had to replace all of our HVAC, all of the HVACs for all 40 units. And it was $300,000. And so that was the year in which the board had to raise rent by 10% in 1 year, which for us that was catastrophic for a lot of members. And that was the trigger for us to really study what is in your reserve study. So it's what looks at your big ticket items, gets engineers to estimate when they're going to be replaced. And that can be in things that have a lifespan of up to 30 years. So in the end, there's a little box in there that says you should contribute this much per per unit to your reserve funds. And that's simply what you take out of your assessment. So I pay $1,232 per month in my assessment. And it all goes into one bank account accounts, but then we immediately write ourselves a check that goes into a reserve account. From that money, it's not me writing a check for more money, but we divert some of those funds to go immediately, every single month, into our reserve funds. And that's the pot of money that we use for the big ticket items, for re-roofing, for paving, for asphalt, for painting, for HVAC stuff. And that means that we don't have to worry about either big jumps in assessments or, God forbid, a special assessment, which is the cooperative telling you, you need to write us another check this month to cover some big, whatever, cost or loss. And that's what the reserves do. So it's interesting for you to know that in cooperatives and in any kind of mortgage that you get is going to come with a requirement that you have a reserve set of funds. And those are funds that only the board of directors can take out. So the management company has to request money from the board of directors from those reserve funds to take out. The only signatories can be 2 signatories in the reserve funds. And that's something that's dictated by California statutes and a lot of mortgage regulatory agreements. So I hope that discusses the whole reserve. So when you think about what operating at cost means, there are things that are plugged in here for you to plan for years in the future when you might have a $500,000 replacement or improvement. And it's not going to be a surprise. It's just, we've already planned for it. It's right there. Just pass over those funds to our operating account and get the work done. Yep.
When the mobile home park down in Soledad was considering going into a cooperative agreement, there was probably some families that didn't have a large income, and they were faced with so the group that had to come up with money up front to be able to do the loan or however they did it, how did they work with the people that were of lower income or fixed income that couldn't get into that at the set price point that everybody else was at?
Yeah, I think for both of the co-ops I'm familiar with, they didn't have a significant change in difference between rent and assessment, and the share price was really low. They also got a lot of other help and grant programs, and it's specific to that because there's a whole USDA farm worker housing program that provides grants to get these projects started, and it's been around since the 60s. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to answer your question with the detail that I think you're looking for. But most of the co-ops that are formed as a conversion are done assuming that there's not a significant change from whatever your rent or lease agreement is now and what will be in the co-op. So hopefully, I hope that that's not something that's going to be.
So there's no buy-in fee?
Oh, there was a buy-in fee, yes, but
How much is that usually?
it's all dependent on the project. For the farm worker housing co-ops, they were less than 500. I mean, even now, one of the co-ops is at 700, another one is at 1,700, and 2,500. So those are folks that have decided to keep it at pretty much zero equity, like no increase in value. And that's what it's been forever. So it's the purpose of charging a membership share is, like I said, it's not to create a barrier of entry, or it's to put to work, right? It's to actually make sure that you can cover the costs as you're opening the co-op, and that's all its real purpose is. Yeah.
So in other words, if you could get a plan in place to have the buy-in fee only be $500, then the equity earned on that $500 would be tiny compared to if you had a buy-in fee of $2,500 at 10%. That's substantial.
Yeah.
And the money you personally, individually own.
Yes. So if you're going to do the limited equity, like peg it to some percentage rate every year, then it'll have a compounding effect over the years. Like I said, 85, it was $5,000, and now it's $35,000. But that number's changed, like I said, every year. In the 80s, there was some high inflation years. And lately, since the recession, it's been between 1% and 3%.
So your volume was 5,000.
No, 85. We bought it in 1985. And there's still a few people that bought it at that point, and now their value is 35,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like a lot, but when you look at what the percentage growth rate is, it's definitely less than 10% per year. But yeah, I mean, it's something it's like I don't know, just a very safe investment.
Yeah.
And yeah, and eventually my son is going to be old enough that he's going to want more space, and I have a guaranteed amount of money that I'm going to be able to get as a return and know that I have to live in our payments. So yeah, I mean, it's nice. Has it beat the stock markets? Not quite, no. But it's going to save money. It's better than a CD. It's at 0.5% or 1%. Yeah, it's
Ours goes up 10%, but you can't get that from a bank anywhere.
I know, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but you could put that money into, if you put that money into Apple, then whatever, in hundreds, or whatever, many more percentage points. So yeah, it's a safe investment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. How many people here are on the committee that's, I guess, trying to do this? How many folks are members? Should I ask that question again?
Are you asking numbers or people here?
Oh, people here. Yeah. I mean, so for those of you who haven't, maybe this is your first time hearing about it, are there any missing holes in here? I mean, things that completely not that I've discussed here that you want to know about?
I have a question. If you had the opportunity to move here and are buying this 2,500, would you rather live here than Davis?
That's a hard one. I can tell you this: if I found a job in the Bay Area, that's what I'd be looking for. I wouldn't be looking for anything in the marketplace. I know I'm so far away from it. This would be the only place I can imagine. But I don't know what the home prices are, because that's the thing you have separate. What you have separate here is your ownership of your home, and that is at market rate, whatever you can get for it. So I don't know what that is here. I'm not sure.
Shelley knows.
If you were going to relocate to the Bay Area because you had a fabulous job and you wanted to live in a mobile home park, would you want to live in a mobile home park that's a cooperatively owned mobile home park or owned by an individual corporation?
No, I mean, when a landlord owns, I'm just going to expect that my lease is going to change unpredictably and probably much more than I can imagine on a yearly basis. And my only hope would be that the entire economy comes crashing and they come back and offer a lower lease. But I would be looking for a co-op. Of course, when I go to co-ops, the first thing I would ask about is, can I see your reserve study? What percent funded are you? Because there are unfortunately some co-ops that really have taken the affordability concepts and driven it into the ground, and paint's coming off the walls, and sidewalks around are all cracked because they just don't want to spend the money to upkeep it. They want to keep their rents as they were in 1973. And that's the kind of co-op that I would not want to go into. Those are the questions I would be asking. This is the co-op, and I found a good job in the San Francisco area. I'd be looking for your budget, your reserve study, and history of assessment increases. So I also don't want to see big increases, but I also don't want to see zero increases for a long time. Because for our co-op, prior to a culture of education, we had 5 years in which we didn't raise rents. And that's when we were hit with the HVAC. And then we had to have 10% increase, and that was terrible. And every year since then, what we do is we look at our budgets from the past 2 or 3 years and see for all the different line items, do they go up a certain amount? It's been going up about 2% every year for almost all the line items for our management contracts, and salaries, and insurance, and blah, blah, blah. It's been going up about 2%. So we always have been increasing our assessments by about 2%. And that's all, because we operate at cost. That's all that we want to be able to cover. That's a more complex way of answering your question. I would look at this place as being a super deal, but I wanted to make sure that there's some good decisions that the co-ops made to make sure that I'm not going to get special assessments or a big rent increase, or see that there's not the investment in the physical site.
Does your co-op have bylaws?
Yes, they must.
So when they wrote the bylaws, they didn't write into them, as we have, that we have to fund these reserve accounts at a certain minimum, which is a lot of money. So our bylaws took care of that. So you didn't do that ahead of time with the requirements?
They say that you're supposed to get them done, but they don't. There's no police that says it's looking at those, other than your mortgage company with the regulatory agreement. So it is part of the Davis-Sterling Act that governs all common interest developments in which cooperatives are part of it. But there's not there's not a police or an auditor or an inspector that says that your reserve studies are not funded enough, so you have to do something. It's up to the members to notice and do something about it.
Our bank definitely is policing that.
What's that? So here's what we did a refinance. So to get a little bit to your point, when we refinanced, part of the agreement with the bank was that, well, they did look at our reserves and said, the old formula for your minimum reserves, the bare minimum, was $1,000 per unit. So we had to have a special account that had $60,000, which they had authority to authorize withdrawals from. And they said, that formula is old. It needs to be at least 2 or 3 times that amount. So they told us as part of the refinance package that we're just going to add that amount into your mortgage. And as part of the deal, you're going to increase your reserves to this level, and what is the mortgage authorized reserve funds, specific subsection, got increased a bunch. But part of that refinance, we reset our reserve funds to significantly higher. And I'm glad they did, because our reserve studies have changed lately.
So you mentioned at the beginning that CCCD does board training, finance education, and long-term planning training. So can you talk about, so we're going to be a new board when we convert to a co-op. So can you talk about the types of trainings that you perform? And obviously in the training, I was focusing on you need to comply with the reserve study and train everything how to read the documents.
Yes, we start with your legal aspects and financial aspects as 2 different workshops. And one is to help you understand about how Davis-Sterling and the manufacturer owned park laws affect the kind of decisions that you make. And a bunch of it has to do with around your election process and your notices to members, and some other issues that you wouldn't think about, like anytime more than 2 board members are together, they cannot talk about co-op business if they just happen to run into each other on the street, right? So there's no communication happening about co-op business the directors can have in private and secret. Always got to be an announced meeting and with notes taken. So that was something me coming from the general nonprofit world, and I didn't know that, because in the nonprofit world, we directors talk to each other all the time. And we try to do as much work before we get to the board meeting, so that those meetings happen quickly. And for me to learn that there's a whole regulatory thing from the state of California that says that the board has to do their business so that the members, in a way that the members can see what was discussed and how those decisions were made. That is law. So that's the kind of training that we'll do in one section. And that's one little slice of it, a bunch of other stuff. And it also includes, your membership application process and fair housing laws. Once we do that legal stuff, then we'll go into the finance side, which is about budgeting and the reserve stuff. And then there are other kind of sub-modules that might have to do with how to make sure that you run your elections process in the way it's prescribed by PACE, which is it's really almost a 4-month-long process that begins with asking for nominations, getting those nominations, figuring out who's allowed to vote, because people who have lapsed assessments are not allowed to vote, and giving prior notice like a month in advance of your annual meeting and doing your ballots right. So once you do that once or twice, you won't need our help again, because you'll have your systems and you'll have your kind of recipe for how to do those things. But that's what we like to do with new co-ops, to make sure we start out those kind of legal issues and the basic finance aspects.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question for Shelley, and you'll probably answer into it. But so, when we start our co-op, we know that not everybody wants to be in a co-op, and that's just what it is. So we're going to have some people that are going to be residents, but not members of the co-op. So they wouldn't be voting members. They would just be renters. So they would be a distinct, they would just be paying rent, not an assessment per se, or?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if for manufactured home parks, if there's a certain percentage within a manufactured home park that can be non-members, or if it has to be all members.
It doesn't have to be all members at first, because we won't be able to get 100%
Sure.
to do this conversion.
Okay. 2/3 of 2/3.
Right, so legally, it's actually 51%. So we, the bank has mentioned 2/3, but to form a co-op under California law, it's the 51%. So it's correct, there'll be two classes, there'll be members and there'll be non-members. And only the members will be the voting members and be able to run for the board of directors.
And
Everybody else will be renters.
they'll be renting to the from the co-op.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that, I'm not sure if you're legally obligated then to convert those to member occupied when those change.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's a bridge I haven't crossed. So that's what the kind of thing that I would investigate. Yeah.
It's a good question, yeah, because I'm just, it concerns me that we're going to have this like dual class situation for a while until one by one we convert them all.
Yeah.
It's through sales. And we also know that, some of those people are, once we do all the work of getting this into a co-op, there's going to be people that were saying no before, and now will probably say yes, and they'll be part of our co-op, but there's still going to be some people that are just vehemently no.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah. Can't quite understand what other options there are that would be more beneficial. But yeah, sometimes it's fear that whatever.
Hope for a great payoff from the development company.
Ah,
That's all I can figure.
Yeah, that's like I said. I've taken a few phone calls from companies that specialize in converting co-ops to condos, and the whole deal is yeah, it's all about what the payout is about. But where I've seen that happen, the payout doesn't put you in a better position to get something you're saying it's only good for people that are planning on then moving into a retirement community or moving to Iowa or whatever. Because if you get $100,000 or even $300,000 here, that's barely enough just for the down payment. And you get a mortgage that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, so.
Plus, according to their sign down there at the gate, they're saying that you'll never really be an owner no matter what you do. They said you'll never be an owner. That's the naysayers, I'm saying.
Yeah, well, you're always going to own your own home, but become a shareholder in the corporation that owns the whole place,
I don't really get their logic either. So.
Okay.
Seems like
Very
a
logical.
good thing to me.
Well, renters definitely don't get tax forms saying they get to deduct part of mortgage interest or a portion of the property tax. So only owners get that. So if people stay as renters, they won't get that little tax benefit.
Okay. So I'm happy to talk to the committee if there's another next step for Kim and I to support you with.
I guess one thing that we'll probably need a lot of help with is this whole process of the election of the very first board.
Oh, yeah. Right.
We have board members, but we're going to be increasing the number of board members, and it's all part of the conversion process.
Yeah.
So it's going to have to be carefully.
So I wonder if for new co-ops and other businesses or other types of co-ops, usually there's what we call initial directors, and those are the people who sign the articles of incorporation, and they will serve as initial directors only until the first annual meeting of members, which could be the following month, or the following 2 or 3 months. So I would hope that it's not terribly difficult to find your initial set of directors that know that they're only going to be eligible to serve as directors for the first maximum 1 year, and hopefully less than 6 months. So that, I'm not sure how much of a potential there is for conflict between or competition for those initial director seats. If there is, then you can only do it by informal vote because there's nothing binding in an organization that does not exist. I think I want to do kind of straw poll votes for
Or a red card and a green card.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, we're going to have something that looks like an election process, nomination and your statement, and then have those people who have somehow stated they want the co-operative form to be those voters. But you're kind of, you operate in a world which, since the entity doesn't exist, there's not formal rules.
So before we were talking about the annual meeting and approving the budget, if it's a large item, then the members have to vote on it. So let's say we set the annual meeting for May, and so May 31st is the annual meeting, and we fill the hall, and we have 200 people here to attend the annual meeting. Is the vote just for the people who are present at the meeting to vote on the budget for the following year, and for the board of directors that they're.
So the way the vote usually is supposed to happen is that it's everything is presented to the people before, and they fill out their ballots at their home, and they in that month meeting after the annual meeting they submit their vote, so what happens at the annual meeting is really counting of the ballots. Yeah. So that's really how it should happen. I work with a handful of co-ops that were created a long time before the rules were set. I'd still like to have nominations and elections happen within the people that are removed. But I'm trying to help move away from that. Simply because being a director requires a little more forethought. You want people to think about who they want.
So are the ballots just for picking the board members, or?
Any other big issue, yes.
So is it also for approving the budget?
Yeah, for the big items, yes.
So basically the budget gets circulated before the meeting, and people have a chance to vote on it, and then at the meeting you calculate.
And I think that if somebody has to turn it in, then they can vote at that meeting. You have that right. It all depends on what your election policy are. But that is the general format for how you vote on those things for any meeting. So, yeah, it's, you want all the members to know what's going to be discussed so that you don't come out with something like out of the blue. Members need to know a month in advance. Okay, these are the things that are going to be discussed and voted upon at the annual meeting. That's the purpose of the whole process. So it's more involved than just setting a date and having it show up and try to decide what you're going to decide on.
No question for you. So you mentioned your organization does something, training around conflict resolution and stuff like that, or at least, it's part of it. We're in a situation in this park where we've got, all of us here are like pro-co-op, and then there's a few people in the park that are like vehemently no, because for whatever reason, whether they're pro-developers or something like that, and there's a group of them that are also no just because they've been lied to. And I want to find a way to reach the no's that have been lied to, and I'm just trying to figure, we're all humans, we're all rational adults. Is there anything you can offer or suggest, whether it's a meeting or a message or something we can do to get people to see the light? It seems silly that we have to do this, but they're so entrenched, they've so been lied to that it's just like, I don't want to even hear you guys talk anymore.
Yeah.
And so we're just at this like stalemate. It's like there's X number of people we can't reach, and we're looking for solutions. I'm looking for I think
It's the way the whole country is now.
Well, it's within our code too. I mean, we've always got 20% of the people who think that the board is up to some kind of conspiracy against the
So it
members.
stays.
I mean, you got to make an effort, but
We have.
the people who can listen to reason can also understand good arguments for something. And I'm thinking about some of the things that have happened in our cooperative that's well, we had almost a good 40% of our members that really don't like our management company, really don't. And on the board, there started to be almost a majority that was willing to terminate the contract with the management company. But there might have been good arguments for changing the management company, but there were still more than half of the members that really didn't want that. The work that went into the board understanding what the issues were really about required that we work with our, Education and Outreach Committee to design essentially a survey where people wrote what they thought was good about the management company, what was bad, all anonymous. Set it up in a way that we knew that only one response per membership was provided, but that when we read it, it was going to be anonymous. So that way we got almost everybody to respond. And the board was able to understand that even if the board had good reasons to, almost enough good reasons to get rid of the management company, that the membership would stand for it. The majority of it would. So there is no short answer for how to get around that. There's still a lot of work involved. And because there's not an entity formed, and there's not a recognized, authority that would find on the board of directors, I'm not sure how you'd be able to do that other than, yeah. So all I can think about is more public announcements of what you have heard or read or arguments and rebuttals to it. And as much, evidence and in support of it as possible. So there's no short way around it. There's no...
It's hard to find a middle ground.
Yeah, no, I understand, yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, you remind me, there's somebody else in Davis that was working to try to convert a manufactured home park. I think the biggest issue there was there wasn't a willing seller, but the organizing process to try to pressure the seller, the owner to sell to the members and convert it to a co-op didn't have enough support either. But I think the main issue there was that there wasn't a willing seller. And I hear there's at least a seller who has to sell, right? Or an owner who has to sell this
Right.
to the residents. Yeah.
So we have our financing set up, we have the transfer mechanism set up, and we're, getting closer to the 51%. So we're plodding along.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, there's not a easy way to resolve that. And I promise you that there are at least 10% that will never hear your or understand your side. You've got to live with that, yeah.
Look at the outcome here. We tried so hard to get the information out, and this is the outcome we get.
Yeah. I applaud your efforts. And yeah, so we would like to see more housing cooperatives form, and making myself available to work with you to...
¿Puedes hacerlo en español?
Si yo hablo español, sí.
¿Puedes hacerlo en español?
Sí.
I asked him if he could do it in Spanish, and he said yes.
Entre esos hay gente que
Tengo bastante, ¿ya? Bastante.
no apoyan.
Claro.
Okay.
But ellos,
Pues sabiendo eso, me gustaría invitar a alguien de Cooperative.
yes, that would be great.
Y ellos conocen muy bien, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would like to invite if there's a group of Spanish speakers that I can find a way to bring somebody from Santa Elena Co-op to talk about what
And Pedro is here, so we have more with you, which got tied up at work, so.
Sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.